Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here is, well, it's pretty simple. We take the critical sources that define a field, we strip them down, and we give you that foundational knowledge you need fast.
And today we are strapping into the driver's seat of what is a really high-stakes world, the fleet business.
It really is. I mean, it's one of the most demanding industries out there. You have these razor-thin margins and just constant operational pressure.
Efficiency isn't just a goal in this sector, it's the absolute mechanism for survival.
Absolutely. So today our focus is on the oxygen of the trucking industry cash flow. We're going deep into the source material that identifies the 7 most critical and often, invisible early warning signs of cash flow trouble.
And we want to find those cracks before they become these full-blown crises.
Exactly, before they threaten the whole operation.
That's the core of it. Cash flow problems in a fleet, they rarely just appear overnight as a big crisis. They build up quietly. They're often hidden in plain sight, just right there in the day-to-day.
So our goal is to arm you with the ability to spot them.
Long before they threaten your stability. Knowing where to look, well, that's the difference between proactively managing your future and just reacting to an emergency.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start with the immediate pressure points, the things that come from the outside world and just squeeze the operation.
The external squeeze.
Right. And point number 1, this is a massive red flag in transport. Late customer payments.
And this gets amplified in really competitive markets like the South African context, the source details. As the fleet owner, you are fronting all the immediate risk.
All of it.
The cash for fuel, tolls, maintenance, driver's wages, all of that is going out today, regardless of whether your customer pays you in 30, 60, or even 90 days.
But just waiting for payments to be really late, that's too reactive, isn't it? How do we measure the danger while it's still, creeping up?
You need metrics. You have to track this. The biggest indicator is your average payment cycle. Some people call it days sales outstanding.
Your DSO.
Exactly. If that number starts consistently creeping past 30 days, and especially past 45, you've got a fundamental timing problem, a mismatch.
Okay, what else?
Look at your collections. I mean, are you regularly on the phone chasing invoices that were due last week? That's a huge sign of systemic stress.
And the sources also point to the danger of the repeat offender.
Oh, absolutely. If you have 1 or 2 major customers who are consistently late, you're not just dealing with bad timing. You are effectively giving them an involuntary, interest-free loan that your business just cannot afford.
So why does this one thing, the slow payment, spiral so quickly into a crisis?
It's simple math, really, but with massive consequences. When your cash coming in is slower than your cash going out, you're forced to dip into your operating capital, your reserves.
If you even have any.
Right. And if those reserves are shallow, you've got no buffer. You go from being stable to just being constantly urgent.
Yeah.
And that urgency, it forces panic decisions.
Like taking on high-interest debt just to make payroll?
Exactly. Which then just eats into next month's margin. It's a vicious cycle.
Okay, let's move to the second external pressure point. Rising fuel and operating costs that catch the fleet off guard. Now look, fuel spikes are a fact of life in this industry.
They're completely unavoidable.
But if a routine price hike suddenly puts this huge existential strain on the entire business, that's where you know you have an internal structural problem.
If every cost increase feels like a shock, like you're constantly surprised by volatility, that's not just a market problem. It tells you your cash flow structure, it just has no protective fat. It's too lean.
And here's where it gets interesting. Finding those subtle signs. You have to look at where the money is being diverted, right?
Yes.
Are fuel increases forcing you to postpone other payments? Are you struggling to keep up with scheduled maintenance because that money had to go to the fuel bill?
Or are you finding yourself on the phone with your suppliers, needing to negotiate payment terms more and more often?
What does that pattern reveal?
It reveals reactivity. A stable fleet, they budget for this stuff. They build cushions to absorb these changes. If your business is constantly shifting gears in direct response to everyday cost changes, it just means the whole system is running too close to the financial edge.
You're just managing cash, not really generating it.
You're surviving, not thriving.
Okay, so let's shift from those external timing issues to the internal structure. These are the foundational problems that are totally invisible until they're not.
Until the whole thing comes crashing down.
Right. Point 3, relying heavily on one customer for most of your cash flow. This feels so safe, right? You've got volume, you've got certainty.
It's an illusion of safety. This is concentration risk, and it is a silent financial killer. We see it all the time with growing fleets that land one huge contract.
And the source has a specific number, a threshold.
It does. It warns that if one customer is responsible for more than 50% of your turnover, you are effectively running a single point of failure business.
That feels so counterintuitive. I mean, isn't landing one massive, reliable contract the definition of efficiency?
It's efficient until it isn't. Think about it. If that one client changes their order or cut their volume or just decides to renegotiate rates because they know you're dependent,
You have no leverage.
none. The warning signs go beyond just the percentage of turnover. It's about your behavior. If you feel like you cannot negotiate better rates or hold them accountable for late payments because you're terrified of losing them,
Then that client controls you.
exactly. The vulnerability is that you can't say no. One delayed payment, one contract change, and a ripple goes through your entire operation
Yeah.
because there's nothing else to cover that gap.
Which leads perfectly into the really foundational issue. We've talked about external risks, customer risks, but what about the bedrock of your pricing?
Your operating costs.
Point 7 in the source material. Being unsure of your real operating costs, your true cost per kilometer or cost per load.
This might be the most fundamental crack of all. A surprising number of fleet owners, they operate without this clarity. And it begs the question, how can you price your services correctly, sustainably, if you don't know your exact operating costs?
So if I'm running blind, what's the disaster I'm inviting? Is it just tight margins or is it actual insolvency?
It's both. The insolvency comes because you're consistently underpricing without even realizing it. To get your true cost per kilometer, you have to understand variable costs, like fuel and oil, and your fixed costs.
Like salaries and insurance?
Yes, but also depreciation and, crucially, tire wear. So many people forget that. They look at fuel and drivers and forget that a truck's tires are a massive asset cost that has to be factored into every single trip.
They only count the cost when they buy the tires, not as they're wearing them out trip by trip.
Precisely. And without that clarity on things like tire wear, depreciation, maintenance, all the other warning signs we've talked about, the tight margins, the debt, they stay hidden until they just explode.
You find out you were never actually profitable to begin with.
You were essentially subsidizing your customers' transport with your own capital.
Let's move to what is probably the quietest, but maybe the most emotionally charged sign of distress. This is what happens behind closed doors when an owner feels like they have no other options.
Point 4. Using personal funds to cover business expenses.
This is a devastating indicator.
It really is.
It really is.
Because it's the point where the business has failed to fund itself. The line between your personal security and the business's survival has just completely blurred.
What does this actually look like day to day?
And it looks like panic on a Friday afternoon. It's using your personal savings to fill the fuel tank when the company card gets declined.
Or transferring money from your personal account just to cover driver salaries.
Exactly. It's taking out high-interest personal loans, not for growth, but just to cover routine monthly costs. You're constantly borrowing from one place to plug a hole in another.
And what this shows is that the fleet isn't an independent, viable financial entity anymore. The pressure on that individual owner must be immense.
Oh, the pressure is toxic. And when personal money gets involved, the financial risks just escalate because the decisions are driven by panic and survival, not sound business strategy.
Which brings us directly to a key operational sacrifice. Point 5. Maintenance is being delayed or only done when it's absolutely necessary.
When cash is that tight, maintenance feels like the only optional expense you can push off.
And that's just a critical miscalculation. Penny wise, pound foolish.
Totally.
So what are the early indicators here? Stretching service intervals way past the manufacturer's recommendation.
Yep. Or skipping minor repairs until they become urgent, using cheaper parts that won't last as long, just to save a few bucks right now.
Why is this such a huge red flag?
It's twofold. First, delayed maintenance is always more expensive later. A small oil leak becomes a seized engine. That failure requires towing, extended downtime, emergency labor costs.
But then second,
An unmaintained truck is an unreliable truck. One single breakdown on a critical route can wipe out the profit from an entire month. Or worse, it could jeopardize a valuable contract if you miss a delivery window.
so you save a little now, but you expose yourself to catastrophic risk later.
That's it, exactly.
Okay, finally, let's look at point 6. Cash flow depends too much on debt or short-term finance. Now, in transport, things like revolving credit, overdrafts, fuel cards, they're standard tools.
Sure, they're great for managing timing issues.
Right. But when do they become poisonous?
They become poisonous when you stop using them as a scalpel for timing and start using them as a sledgehammer to cover fundamental holes in your business model.
So what should we be watching for?
Constantly maxing out your credit limits, using debt to cover routine expenses, not for growth or expansion. And that feeling, that cyclical feeling of intense relief only when a customer payment finally
And
lands.
that relief is immediately wiped out because you have to use it to pay down the debt you just took on.
Correct. Healthy debt is used to bridge predictable timing gaps. Poisonous debt is used to fill routine cash flow gaps over and over because the business itself is structurally deficient. If you're borrowing just to stay alive, you're paying interest on your own lack of profitability.
So after all that, what does this mean for someone listening today? We've identified some pretty serious fault lines.
I have.
But the good news is that spotting these signs early puts you back in control. These problems don't have to become crises if you act on them.
Precisely. If you recognize any of these indicators, the late payments, the dependency, the debt, now is the time to pivot. You have to get proactive. And the source gives a really clear framework for how to do that.
Okay, so give us the concrete first steps. What's the immediate homework?
First, you have to implement a rigorous, regular cash flow review. This doesn't mean you need to hire a financial analyst. For a small fleet, it just means dedicating the first hour of every Monday to mapping out your expenses against your expected income.
And not just the due dates, but the actual historic payment dates.
Yes, understand the trends. Don't just react to the numbers in the bank account today.
That's step one. What's next for costs?
Second, get those clear, detailed cost breakdowns. Stop guessing. You must know your true cost per kilometer. Accurately distinguish between fixed and variable costs. If you aren't tracking tire wear and maintenance in your trip costing, you are fundamentally mispricing your service.
And what about the customer side, the concentration risk and late payments?
Third, that's about customer relationship adjustments, better terms, stronger collection strategies. Maybe that means contractual penalties for late payments, or even better, negotiating smaller, more frequent payments.
Or a deposit up front to cover the immediate fuel costs.
Absolutely. Shift that immediate burden off of you. Fourth, make those small operational adjustments to remove hidden inefficiencies. We're talking driver training for fuel consumption, better route planning to minimize tolls.
Those small gains add up. They thicken your buffer.
They do.
Yeah.
And finally, if someone is listening right now and they recognize multiple issues, they're using personal funds, they're delaying maintenance, what do?
They shouldn't try to solve it alone, right?
No. If the issues are compounded, the fifth step is crucial. Seek guidance. Find a financial specialist who really understands the transport industry. Sometimes you just need that outside perspective to restructure things effectively. You don't have to navigate this alone.
That was a true deep dive. Running a fleet is demanding, margins are tight, but the core insight is consistent, isn't it? The key is catching these issues early.
The sooner you identify and measure a problem, the easier it is to fix.
And the stronger your business will stand at the end of the day.
And that structure, it leads directly to confidence and control. The sources make a compelling point. With the right insight, you can create a business that moves forward with certainty. So take a moment and just consider how replacing that reactive management, the panic of waiting for the next payment, with proactive management, regular reviews, clear costs, how that transforms not just your balance sheet, but your entire mindset as an entrepreneur. What stands out to you is the single most crucial step toward building a business that moves forward with true certainty.